For preventing electoral violence, the USIP, my colleagues and I decided that it would be a fruitful approach to try to bring different parts of our programs together because we wanted to emphasize the long-term perspective of what happens with electoral processes as parts of longer transformations. So it was important to us to add more value to electoral training and electoral education beyond simple in the polling booth processes, and to help participants, to help those who wanted to be observers or monitors, or even simply to understand their electoral processes better. We wanted to help them understand in long-term perspective what's happening in societies in transition as they go through new processes of elections. We did this by melding together three different strands of programs. The first strand was specific historic knowledge of African elections, examples of elections that had gone well or moderately well, less violent, more productive, more open elections, and also case studies of African elections that had been marred by significant violence or threats or various types of activity that would make them less credible. So we had specific case study knowledge for comparative purposes. We had a series of analytical questions that we walked participants through so they could understand some of the things to look out for, some of the ways to analyze events that were occurring in the run-up to elections and in the aftermath. The second strand was training on specific conflict resolution, conflict management skills. So we emphasized things like negotiation, mediation, facilitated dialogue skills, communication skills that would help these activists involved in elections be able to perhaps go to groups that were operating as political activists if they saw signs of tension. The signs of tension were things that they pulled out of the case studies that we had worked them through, and then we were hoping to give them practice in being able to mitigate any signs of potential violence that they were seeing. So really an emphasis on the preventive aspect. And then the third strand was sort of very, very general, but also really interesting. This was my favorite part of the program, you might be able to tell. We walked them through general processes of democratic transformation. So in other words, helping them walk through not just what they understand are the key parts of democracy, things like a freedom of speech, things like the right to participate, things like elections and representation, but also to help them understand what it really means to live in a society where those institutions are strong and functioning. And this was the big missing link for many of the people that we work with.